Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Welcome back to the shop. I gotta tell you, I saw something on Instagram I had to have. The company's called Meridian Defense. They do an apocalypse series of AK-47s, and this one is called Pestilence. And boy howdy, is that just one of the prettiest AKs I ever seen. So, what I did is I contacted Meridian Defense on Instagram and asked them, hey, could I do a build and pay homage to one of your builds? And they're like, oh, absolutely. So cool. Meridian Defense, awesome people, awesome guys. Their rifle is amazing, and they make real good stuff. I kind of do a hobby machining thing, as some of you already know. And the way that they're putting pins and the way that they're machining stuff is really the way to do it. $1,600, I don't have it. I really want a rifle like that. So I asked them if I could copy a build, pay homage to their product, and this is what I came up with. So this is me paying homage to Meridian Defense's Apocalypse series known as Pestilence. So this is how I got this rifle. I first contacted Meridian Defense, made sure it was okay. They said, yeah, go for it. Sounds like a cool idea. Then I had to find some war-torn wood, Romanian war-torn wood. And so I contacted AKM Surplus on Instagram. That guy is awesome. I highly recommend going to him if you need something special or something rare. And that's where I picked this wood up. It was really affordable, awesome stuff. So anyhow, now I could source all my parts, or I could buy something that was pretty much done, and that's what I did for the sake of time. I went to Atlantic Firearms and picked up a Romanian M10, and the Romanian M10s just come basically stripped down, no furniture, and they're really nice rifles. They're chrome lined barrels, cold hammer forged as well on the barrel. Good stuff. So I wanted to start doing the copy build, and I went with this as the base rifle to start building off of. So the first thing I had to do was mark everything. You punch the barrel, you punch the trunnion, you punch the gas block or front sight post, you punch the barrel, and you punch where the sight post is, so you can line everything back up and re-push it back together, getting it all lined up. Because when you're pushing this stuff on, there's almost no chance that you're going to be able to rotate this once it's pressed on the barrel to reline up the pinholes when you're driving the pins back through. You drive all your pins out, and you take a look at what the holes look like. You'll notice that they look completely cylindrical, because once they press the parts on, then they drill the holes, then they press the pins. Pins and the holes are generally about 1/1000th in difference of an inch. So the pin will be 1/1000th over the diameter of the hole, generally speaking. Barrel pin included, that's about 1.5. Sometimes you'll see different builds with 2. I understand there's always an exception to the rule. But what the important part is once you strike the areas on the front gas block and barrel and rear trunnion and barrel and whatever else you have that you want to line up, do that first so you can get them back in the same spot with more ease. So there's a few tools that I want to do for this build, and for the sake of time, I wasn't going to make them, and certain companies just make great things and for affordable prices, and you want to help businesses that are able to do that. So the first business that I want to kind of give a shout out to would be Toth Tool Engineering. They make the barrel push out or press in and push out tool. Comes with a couple of threaded rods and then a couple of blocks. These blocks go on either side of the trunnion. These rods slide through these. You put this in a vise. You have a forcing screw, a brass, a pushing screw, and then you can force in your new barrel once, and then populate it, whichever way you like putting together your AKs. But definitely think that Toth Tool Engineering was definitely a good tool. I like what they do. I like the product. I've used it, and it really works for me. The other tool that I really wanted for this build, just in case, because anyone who's done this, if any of you guys have done this, sometimes when you're on the arbor press, you might buck your barrel past where you want it to go, and then it blows your headspace. Now you're out. Now you don't have enough headspace, and you need to push that barrel back out. That's where I went to Robert Phobos, and he's got Robertson Armor Supply. He makes the pushback tool, and this tool is just amazing. And you can actually use this tool in conjunction with the AK barrel tool from Toth, and just drive the whole barrel out, get everything back in. But this is just basically for driving it out. You can also use this in conjunction with an arbor press if you want, to help press whatever you really want. He also makes these little brass shims for the front, so you don't have to stack pennies. And he does do the cut for the extractor claw. If we can get that to focus, probably not. There we go. So a couple of tools I felt that I didn't really feel the need to make. I just wanted to, you know, buy them from the people who created them, and awesome. They're awesome tools. I highly recommend them. So once you get the marks for your barrel, you can start pressing all your stuff off. And there's a bunch of different ways people do this. I just basically took a piece of mild steel, cut out a diameter of the barrel area to press out the front sight and gas block. So this is basically the same diameter as the barrel. This will fit right in here, and then you can press out this gas block front sight combination. The back part of it is for right here where there's a recess. Let's see if we can get that in focus. Nice little recess. What that's for is your rear sight block. So once you get to the rear sight block removal, you can use this, slide it in between there and the trunnion, pop it out. So you're going to have a barrel that's 16.2, 16.3 inches long, and they're really thin. You know, you got to consider that you have a .311 diameter bore inside here, and so the thickness of your barrel is really thin. Not to mention you have a gas port drilled through here. You have 2 pin holes drilled through the top of your barrel here and here. So the amount of stress this area in the barrel can take is not much. You can end up actually bending your barrel. So be really careful about that. Make sure everything's lined up nice and straight when you're on, you know, either a removal tool that you have or the arbor press, or however you happen to do it. A hydraulic press, whatever. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and I'm just showing you how I did this kind of stuff. But when you're removing that, there's a lot of stress in the barrel. Not so much with the front sight block, gas block. Once you start to get to the rear sight block and the trunnion, you really, I mean, that's a long area to be, you know, rocking on such a thin piece of steel. So what I did was I found out what the diameter is. There's a big shoulder right here. Found out what the diameter of that is. Made a slug, made that diameter, got a tube that would be long enough, cut it square, and then you just put that over it. Barrel comes through, and you're putting all the stress after the gas port and the pinholes. And you're also shortening your distance up a whole lot. So now it's a thicker profile of the barrel, pushing on the rear sight block, helping that come off, or the rear trunnion, however you're deciding to use the tools, whichever way. But that's just a really quick idea. Piece of pipe, a consumable part that can get worn out, you know, with the right diameter drilled in the center. Really simple, actually. So the only other thing that I really had to do was I did have to make a machinist's jack, basically just a square piece of steel, and that's adjustable. A lot of people will make their own bolts. This bolt is a very, very fine thread, and just have a washer and a lock nut. Really easy. This just basically helps lift up parts and give them more rigidity. So when you are cutting, you know, 3-4 inches away from the vise, your part isn't sagging and you're starting to cut at an angle. And the last part is basically for truing bolt faces, chambering barrels, crowning, cutting threads, all that kind of stuff. And you have a multitude of screws, and you can adjust all of this stuff and true it up down, you know, to a tenth of 1/1000th of 1 inch. So you can get really, really, really small adjustments out of it and true things up and just get them, you know, dead nuts on how you want them. Not all people who are slamming AKs together are going to want that kind of accuracy. I get it. You know, I totally understand. But if you can, and it only takes you another couple hours of work, why not try it? You know, why not make it accurate and, you know, reliable? So those are the tools that I had made for this particular build, or I made this a long time ago, but definitely used it with this build. And these other tools right here are ones that I built just for this build to make it a lot easier. So obviously you're going to want to measure your barrel, make sure how much you are actually going to take off. In my case, it was just 2 inches I was going to cut off. So now I'm down to 14.5 because I believe that this particular barrel was 16.5 before cutting. Cut down the barrel. After cutting down the barrel, I wanted to run threads. So here's a little clip of me running threads. It's obviously 14 millimeter by 1.0 left-hand thread on the AK-47. So the nice part about cutting left-handed thread is you're really not threading toward anything that you're going to butt up against. You're just going to thread reverse. So it's actually kind of nice because you can just hit the lever, just start threading, and you're threading away from nothing basically. And when you're done with your cut, turn her off. And because it's metric, you don't unlock the handle. You just dial your bit back, run your machine backwards, wait till you line up with the groove, and then make another cut. Really pretty easy. Then of course you're going to want to blue all your parts after you cut them. So here's a little clip of using this tool and how the setup looks like. The rod that you're going to be using for your barrel to see exactly where the center bore line is pointing is going to be as tight as possible without ruining or scratching any of the interior of the bore of the barrel. In my case, I want to say it was a 0.09, somewhere in there. I don't remember exactly, guys. Bear with me. It's been a few days since I've done this. But it was just right. There's just a little bit of resistance, and I was able to have about an inch and a half worth of stick out, so I could actually use indicators on the end of that. So here's your setup. You're going to have a couple of dial indicators. And you can get smaller ones, different ones, longer test rods. You're going to put your test rod into the bore of the barrel on the muzzle end, and you're going to measure it at two extremes, very close to the crown and very far away from the crown. And then you're going to make your adjustments. I like to start out at the far end with rear adjusting, leave the centers loose, the closest to the muzzle, these adjusters. And then when you get close to the point where you're just going back and forth a couple of tenths between the two of them, then you can adjust the center ones. And I generally go off of the farther axis for the center ones. But as you see, we're going to rotate this, and we got maybe half a 1/1000th. And we're going to look at the, let's see if we can get this in focus. Maybe half a thou there. Honestly, on a Romanian AK barrel, that's going to be good enough. And then we're going to do a quick pass on the crown, make sure that's nice and perpendicular to the trajectory of the projectile. Get that nice crown, that 90 degree. Well, we're going to do an 11 degree, but a nice, edge so it's not off. And yeah, that's pretty much going to be the crown job on this one. So the brake, I really didn't feel like spending any more money on this particular build. Like I said, I'm strapped for cash right now. Meridian Defense, this is a copy of their BD3 brake that they have. You can get it for, I want to say, 95 bucks, 100 bucks on their website. But so I had to start trying to figure out what the dimensions were by looking at pictures and cutting it out. This break was 2.5 inches long, and that gives me well over 16 inches worth of barrel. And obviously, once this gets made and you're putting it back on, you're gonna have to pin and weld it to make it a 16-inch legal barrel, or you can put in for a short barrel rifle tax stamp and do it that way. It's really the world's your oyster on what you want to do with that kind of stuff. But for ease of saving money, which is what the build was all about, and just making it simpler, I just pin and welded it. And that gets done last after you get your front sight block on, or that's how I did it. Get the front sight block on, or rear sight block on, then the front sight block on, and then pin and welded this. And then, once this is a legal 16 inches, you can press it into the trunnion. Don't press it into the trunnion and then do this, because then you're in that weird stage of you know what, and if you don't, you got to use your imagination. When you're repopulating your barrel, I had to take this front gas port off, I want to say 0 times. I got this in the first shot, and obviously I built my barrel backwards because I had to pin and weld this. So rear sight block went on first. That had to come off twice to get it lined up perfectly. When you're looking through that hole, don't just look through one area. Look through both sides with a nice bright light. So if you see any half moons, then you know you're not on dead center. And a lot of people might argue it's not important. Well, I don't want to be, bulldozing steel out of that hole and then having something not square or clocked to one direction or another. So when you're repopulating a barrel that's already been populated, look for those little half moons, those little tiny shadows. Really, you might be saving 15 minutes by not doing it, but then you're going to have something that's crooked. You may as well just pop it off. It takes 20 minutes on the hole for a novice guy to just pop it off and clock it one way or another. Just remember where it was, clock it the other way, repress it, see where you're at. Small steps to the moon. It takes a while, but it pays off doing it like that. Also cut 2 holes for to combat muzzle rise on this at 1 o'clock and 11 o'clock. So Meridian Defense, their logo is an octopus, and having respect for them and their company, I'm not just going to straight up copy their logo. Obviously, this isn't one of their builds. This is something is built in by someone else, and I'm not going to just start slapping their logo on stuff. So I took the octopus and the predator skull, and I kind of combined them together and started cutting them. Now, Meridian Defense, they have an awesome laser etching machine that does most of their symbols, stampings, whatnot. I don't got a laser, guys. I'm doing this on the cheap, so I'm using a Pantograph, and a Pantograph is a tool that is from like the 1930s and 40s. So each letter, you have to put the cutter down, and here's a little video of that. And then here's the finished product of what the symbol looks like. So yeah, like I said, it's a slow process to do, but it pays off in the end. Yeah, I also did the little Romanian arrow in there. Yeah, it's sideways pointing toward, the end of the barrel, but I thought it was kind of cool. Underwater spear, octopus, Punisher, Kraken operations, Romanian triangle, because this is a Romanian rifle. When you're populating you're repopulating your parts, a lot of people say use anti-seize, use grease, use something. Honestly, I tried those things. They don't work as well as CV boot grease. CV boot grease, you can go to Napa, any hardware store, O'Reilly, whatever's closest to you, just buy a CV boot kit. You'll have a boot and then 2 things of grease like this. This is the grease you want. Use it on your forcing screws. Use it on anything where there's pressure and you want it lubricated. This stuff works wonders. It really, really does. It's worth the $20 for a CV boot kit to use. Trust me. You'll thank me later. Once you got your flash hider pin and welded, and then it's time to push it into the trunnion. Obviously, I just used the Toth tool to push everything back in. Got it on pretty much the first shot, went slow, used the CV grease, and everything went together really well. Pushed my pin back through, and that was pretty much it. I did put the pins in solution in the freezer. This is not Gatorade. It is a Gatorade bottle. This is actually windshield washer fluid. This doesn't freeze in temperatures that your residential freezer will be at. Put this in there. Put your pin in a baggie, drop that in there, put it in the freezer, get it nice and cold. This will sit out in the garage for the 10-15 minutes until you're ready to actually push your pin through. Fish out the pin. The pin's nice and cold. Obviously, steel condenses, makes it a little easier for driving it in. Also, hitting it with a little bit of sandpaper on the driving end of the pin helps just a little bit, just to knock that edge off so it doesn't catch any burrs and drive any more steel out while it's being reinstalled. So after that, it's time to sand all the nice parts that you have put back together. And boy, nothing breaks your heart than making something nice and machining it true, and then bluing it and making it really nice, and then just taking a bunch of Scotch-Brite to it. But that's pretty much the finished product. That's what it looks like. So yeah, so that is the little copy of the Meridian Defense Pestilence build. And yeah, I had a lot of fun doing the build. The guys at Meridian Defense are amazing people. They're awesome. You can talk to them. They're regular guys. So you guys remember that loose is fast, brakes only slow you down, and shotguns have a wider spread. Be safe and have fun on the range, and I hope to see you next time. One more thing, guys. Don't forget to go check me out on Instagram. Then you get to see other builds I do that don't exactly get to go on the YouTube-age. This is a nickel-plated one. Just awesome furniture. I can't thank AKM Surplus enough on Instagram for this. He did all this spray work and woodwork on this one. Just beautiful job. Thank you, guy. I really do appreciate it. But yeah, you can put your mind to it, and nickel plating ain't that hard. This one was done before I bought it, but yeah, guys, if there's something out there that you want to build, it is possible. You can do it. Just like anything else, if you put your mind to it, it can be done. So anyhow, we'll talk to you guys later.